Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast, where we discuss what's happening in the cryptosphere and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Buckle up and huddle on while we dive in and get weird. Here are your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. We've made it this far. It's almost the weekend. I'm excited. I've been getting ready to sell my house, and so this weekend I'm gonna finish the moving process. It's been a long process. I've moved off and on for a while, but I'm gonna finish that up and get everything ready to hand over to the new people. What do you have going on this weekend, Kim?
I'm just gonna enjoy the last few days of being the age that I am right now. I have a birthday coming up. And just kind of hanging, I enjoy the weather right now. Like,
It's
hopefully I
amazing.
will spend a lot of time outside, whether walking or playing with my kids or reading a book. That would be fabulous. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing outside right now. I say Kansas typically has 2 weeks of good weather in the spring and 2 weeks of good weather in the fall, and that's about it. And right now, it's beautiful.
That's true. That's very true.
Hmm.
Okay, well, let's get started with some market updates. I will say if you've been watching the markets this week, you might have a bit of whiplash.
This is true.
I don't know that that's going to end anytime soon. Things are not looking like they are evening out or calming down at all. Yesterday, if you're paying any attention, things went way down and then they came back up, but things are starting to go down again. So even just in the time of first compiling our numbers to right now, things have moved. But at the time being, Bitcoin is down about 1.8% over 24 hours, up a little over 4% over 7 days, sitting at 19,228. Ethereum is down just over 1% over 24 hours and up 6% over 7 days, hanging out at 1325. So $1,325 per coin. The biggest mover is Flow, the number 34 coin, up almost 5% over 24 hours. If that tells you anything about how things have been moving, not even 5% is the biggest mover. And in crypto markets, that is quite low.
Quite low.
Yes. Over 7 days, they're up 5.5%. And they are at $1.72. Flow is a fast, decentralized, and developer-friendly blockchain designed as the foundation for a new generation of games, apps, and the digital assets that power them. They also had some news out recently that they are going to be able to start having their NFTs as profile pictures on Instagram. But that was about a month ago, so I'm sure that's not dictating any kind of movement now. But that's kind of where Flow has been in the news.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It has the market has definitely, I think you gave it a good word, whiplash. We were kind of looking at the charts, and Monday afternoon things kind of spiked up, and then Tuesday afternoon things went back down, and most of the charts reflect that. Like there's a few that are kind of doing their own thing, but for the most part they all kind of reflect that, and it's interesting. Yeah. I don't know if there was some news or what exactly came out about that, but crypto has a mind of its own sometimes.
True. I did read something yesterday that was predicting. So it was talking about how the crypto markets have started mimicking or moving like the traditional markets, and how it is being predicted that within the next month or two, they'll split off again and start moving on their own and not shadow or try to twin the other market. So I suppose I'll be interested to see if that actually happens or not.
I wonder if that has anything to do, lately the markets have been relatively flat. Um, And I think a lot of the money or investors that are in the market are institutional investors.
Hmm,
And so I wonder if they're mirroring the traditional markets because that's primarily who's moving the markets
trading.
right now.
Maybe.
Um, so I don't know. Back in 2020, 2021, when crypto was really booming and exploding to where it is, um, it was a lot of there was a lot of institutional people getting in, but it was also a lot of retail people who were moving the market because they were first time investors starting to buy things and, coming in by the millions. And um, so I wonder if, as continued predictions with recessions and financial hardships, if more retail investors will look for alternatives.
It'll be interesting to see. I hope so. It kind of leads well into what we want to talk about today.
Mm,
We kind of want to go back to the origins of why we talk about crypto to begin with,
yeah.
right? There's obviously a reason why we started a podcast about cryptocurrency, about our faith regarding that. And honestly, I've gotten a little bit away from that in the last few months. Like, I was very, very passionate about trading and where crypto is going for quite a while. And that passion's kind of fizzled out a little bit. I'm just being very honest here,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
Um, and I don't even know that it's an emotional downer because the markets are down. I don't think that's it. I don't tend to be an emotional trader. I don't tend to be an emotional, I don't know, actor, I suppose, whatever. But there's something that has kind of just settled down about it. But we've both been really reminded lately that this is why we got in. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And to me, this just feels like part of the ebb and flow of so many things. Like when you're called to something, when you're really passionate about something, there tends to be an ebb and flow.
Mm,
There are times when it really flows well. I'm not even talking about the cryptocurrency that was the mover today, right? But things just they're going, and we've seen this in the markets. I mean, a year ago they were just going. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the peak of cryptocurrency. It was mid-November last year when Bitcoin hit its all-time high. It was the all-time high for a lot of other coins as well. Just because a lot follow Bitcoin. So we're coming up on that, and it was a hot time when that was happening. Like you said, people were really coming in. It had stopped being like this taboo, and now is this new thing people were trying to move into. And then we see the markets really start to even out and act more like markets, I suppose. Right?
mhm.
For a moment, it didn't matter what you got in; it was going to go up.
Yeah, it was easy to
Right.
make money. Um, and there's been a lot of discussion around crypto because of the unregulated nature of it. There was a lot of people taking advantage. There was a lot of what I would, you could call bad actors or just people out trying to scam people because there was opportunity to make a lot of money really quickly.
Right.
And I know a few episodes ago we talked about a couple people bringing lawsuits against, like Elon Musk or Dave Portnoy for recommending Dogecoin or SafeMoon, and then those people losing money. And I'm not gonna come out and say either one of those was a scam, although I think it's possible one of them was, um, because uh, really what was going on was it was people likened it to like the Wild West gold rush where it was like
I was just going to say that.
everybody who was stuck their toe in was making money,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you weren't making money. I mean, if you just look at the Bitcoin chart, like Kim's right, it was Bitcoin hit its all-time high November 9th of 2021. And from then, it's pretty much been a steady decline. There was a few month level out from mid January to May, and then it dropped again, and then it's been relatively level since the middle of June till now. Like it's gone up
Mhm.
and down a little bit, but Bitcoin has pretty much held the 20,000 mark since mid June. And so, you know, there's lots of there's lots of hurt feelings, there's lots of lost money. Um, but I guess, what Kim and I wanted to talk about today was how that doesn't really have a reflection on our faith and our belief in Bitcoin, because the reason we are involved in Bitcoin, the reason we're involved in cryptocurrency didn't have anything to do with a get rich quick scheme.
Right.
It had to do with Father leading us to be invested in cryptocurrency because we saw it as a solution to a problem. And it wasn't even that it was a solution to a problem in a year. I mean, I don't know that I really ever had any timeline
Same.
necessarily. And so, if it's 5 years, if it's 10 years, if it's 15 years, you will still see me involved in digital currencies, whatever their evolution may be, or if they stay the same. Because unless Father shows me that he has shifted focus to something else, this is where I believe that he is raising up a financial system to function alongside the current financial system so that when it inevitably fails, that there's something there.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I mean, the reason Josh and I ever went into business together with regarding cryptocurrency and then started this podcast was because we were led to it. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I do still believe that there will be a collapse of the current financial system. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. And I don't think it should scare you. There's really no room for fear. But it does, if you have foresight like that and you see something coming, it also gives you the ability to prepare amply for when
Mm-hmm.
it does happen. And so it is my belief, and this is not financial advice. This is me telling you what my belief is. It is my belief that Bitcoin could and has the potential to replace the US dollar as the king currency of like a global currency. Right now, all of the economical systems run on a dollar,
Mm-hmm.
right? On the US dollar. I should say that, probably be more clear about that. Everything is measured back against the dollar. But as we've seen over the last few years, I mean, it started with the pandemic. The US really started just printing money, just saying, okay, we'll just make more.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to trace it way back when they went away from the gold standard, and I know that everyone always talks about this and we don't have to get into it, but that's really when the value of the dollar started becoming shaky and
Mm-hmm.
made it so that it could really be very volatile. And so when we're coming into places where the economy is starting to really lag, we're in a recession, things are only going to get worse. It's coming out of my mouth, but these are the predictions that are coming from major financial players um, in the world. Okay. When we see that kind of stuff coming, and the US dollar has the potential to lose its value at a moment's notice, I think it's important to be ready with something else. And I know that I have been led to Bitcoin. I see Bitcoin as a solution for that. Because it's decentralized, it's not owned by a government. I think that's where we get a lot of the corruption that comes with the current financial system, is that it is tied to a government. And then that government has power over other countries. If you look at
Over
the
other people.
Ukraine and Russia conflict, the US can just turn off the dollar for Russia. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And this is just for a group of people because their government has decided to do something. I think that is the brilliance of Bitcoin. It has to do with self governance, taking on responsibility for yourself, your own finances, how you use those finances, how you manage those finances. Um, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the dollar stepping away from the gold standard. And I think that's important because it ties to something that I wanted to discuss around crypto. So, with the gold standard, they could only print money which they could back with a precious metal, gold. And so, if the government wanted to do something, but they didn't have the money, they couldn't do it. And stepping away from that allowed them to create money out of nothing, or to create, maybe money is not a good word, but to create value out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did was allow them to really, it shifted from our dollar being valued a against something tangible to our dollar being valued against how people felt about the United States at the time. That's really where our only value is where, how does the United States stack up against the rest of the world? How's their economy? How's their military? How's their just ability to function? And that's sort of what gives our dollar value at the current moment. And which is not uncommon. There's a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
But what it allowed them to do was just to make money out of nothing. And so, you know, they've been printing money like crazy. It's it's leading to a situation that might be unrecoverable from using the tools that are currently being used. It might be unrecoverable from. What Bitcoin does is in a digital world, it takes you back to a gold standard. It takes you back to saying there is a finite amount of wealth. This is all there will ever be. And it forces you to be responsible with it. It gives you consequence if you don't utilize it properly. And it creates, it shifts you from being a consumer industry to being something else. I don't even know what the right word is, but if you, as a government, if you have an unlimited capacity to create money, then you're just going to push consumerism. You're going to push spending because that circulation is what keeps value. When you have a finite amount of stuff, it isn't the spending that creates the value. And it makes you be more aware of every move you make, every purchase you make. Even as a citizen in the United States, there's not a whole lot of responsibility for how you spend your money because, except for a few exceptions, we all have the ability to just go to our government and say, "Oops, we spent too much money. We can't pay it back." And for the most part, our government will say, "Okay, no problem. You're free of all your debt. Um, you maybe can't borrow money for a few years, and then away you go." And there's little risk involved in our current financial system.
Right.
And that isn't without its benefits, because I think one thing it has done is it has pushed technological and other advancements in society because people have been willing to take risks that they wouldn't have taken otherwise. So I'm not sitting here saying that's all bad, because I think there have been benefits to that system. There have been infrastructure built, there have been tech things that have pushed the ball forward that never would have been made if people had this huge risk hanging over their head.
Mm-hmm.
So there definitely have been benefits. But the reason that Kim and I believe Bitcoin is poised to step in and present itself as a currency in the world is because it is a finite thing. And yes, it is digital, so you can say, "Oh, it's not tied to the gold standard either." No, but it's very similar. It functions very similar to how gold functions in every aspect. It's just digital.
Mhm.
And compared to like an Ethereum, which I would argue is more like our current monetary system, Bitcoin is not like that. Bitcoin is finite. Bitcoin is not going to change. It's the whole reason it was created the way it was because it in essence is a gold standard digital currency. And I think that it has potential to step in when overspending and overcreation finally gets to the point where it's unsustainable anymore and things fall down. I think that Bitcoin has a potential to step in and say, here's a solution that you can use that that takes away the responsibility of a few people deciding how things are functioned and gives the responsibility back to the people. And we've talked about this a little bit, but through decentralization, you create centralization because instead of having the power be in a few people's hands, you have the power being in a lot of people's hands, but that forces them to function as one. It creates unity.
That's so good. Um, I want to say this also about the current financial system. I don't think it was always broken, and I don't think that it
Yeah.
was a mistake. I think that just like most other technologies, there's a need to evolve
Yeah,
and there's a
exactly.
need to innovate. At one point, people traded seashells for currency, and there arose a time that it needed to innovate. Something needed
Hmm.
to be done to make it work for the people better. And I think that's exactly the place in which we are.
Yeah.
Um, you think back, I just think about innovation in different areas and stuff. Someone invented a wheel out of stone once, and it was huge and it was a big deal. It was one of the first simple machines, and it really changed things. But it had to evolve over the years. And it has, and it continues to do so, right? And I think that the monetary system is no different. It needs to continue to be able to evolve to meet the needs of people.
Mm,
And one of the things about how it has become, when you're talking about the value of the dollar being based on essentially the outlook or the opinion of the United States, of the globe on the United States, it's essentially turned into a credit system.
mm,
And I think that anyone who knows anyone or who has had a bad experience with a credit card will know that basing everything on a credit score is not the most solid way to handle finances, um, or basing everything on spending on credit. Right. Circumstances outside of that will change that may not be reflected in a score, all the things, right? There are so many factors that go into this. And that's essentially what we've gotten to when we stepped away from the gold standard. We changed from having something that was backed by something solid to something that was backed by opinion, which is not um, tangible or finite or solid in any way,
mm.
you know?
I really I like what you said about the current financial system because it's not that we're rooting for it to fail so that something else can that we're involved in can take its place. It's that we just believe this is the next thing, that this is what's coming. And I mean, there's lots of discussion around where cryptocurrency came from. Um, and I can tell you, I think there's a possibility that it came from the same people who run the current financial system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that I'm rooting against these people or rooting against the system. I just believe that it's the next step in what's coming. And I want to see it start moving. I want to see it start taking its place in the global economy, because really what my hope is that as we transition from the stone wheel to the wooden wheel to the rubber wheel, as we transition from seashells to gold coins to paper cash to credit cards to Bitcoin, um, that it is a transition, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
not a um, something that it's not an innovation that comes from devastation. That's my real hope.
Agreed. I think we are rooting for transition, not for devastation,
Yeah.
right? I don't think it would serve people well to have a complete collapse and have to start from absolutely nothing, and only the select few that have already invested in Bitcoin and hold it are the only ones who can go anywhere from there. Um, I think my hope is, I ideally at this point, what I would hope for is the ability to have parallel systems that you can work with fluidly,
Mm,
right? So I may spend dollars here and I may spend Bitcoin there, but to be able to do it just as easy as the other, right?
mhm.
And I think that is the way that the world transitions nicely to it.
Yeah.
Do I think it could happen because something collapses? I do. I think it will just come with a lot more strife and heartache.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the transition we've had in currency already within my lifetime, um, currently, for the most part, you can use cash as easy as you can use a credit card, for the most part.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that is starting to change.
Mhm.
There are venues, there's places that no longer accept cash. There are um, there are restrictions with your bank for withdrawing cash for large purchases. And so already there is a transition happening towards digital currency within the United States, and I would guess many other places. Um, so that transition is already happening. And it's there's still people that complain. Like, I went to a baseball game a while back, and the baseball stadium didn't accept cash, and there was people complaining about not being able to pay for their popcorn with their cash, with their $50 bill, because that's how expensive popcorn is at events. um, but I guess my hope, like we've talked about, is as we transition to a digital currency, as we transition to cryptocurrency, I believe that it is a process, because, like Kim said, otherwise there's a lot of strife, there's a lot of heartache, there's um, probably a lot of people hungry if it comes through a collapse of a system. Um, so really, I guess what I want is for you to hear our hearts in
Mm,
that we believe this has value. We believe Bitcoin has value. We believe it has potential to take over as a global currency. But our hope is that that doesn't come through the demise, through the catastrophic demise of something else, but that it comes through innovation and evolution.
hmm. Absolutely. Um, One thing I want to touch on before we leave you guys for the day. Um, Next week we have a special guest who will be on, who hopefully, I don't know how he wouldn't, but hopefully we'll be talking even more about Bitcoin and its potential use globally. And I'm really excited to have this guy on. He's someone we know in real life, not just over a phone or over a Zoom call or behind a keyboard. And he is someone who is making big strides in the world of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We will see you next week.
Sounds good. See ya. Thank you for listening. Join us every Monday and Thursday as we discuss trading on earth as it is in heaven. If you want to connect further, follow us on social media at market.mystics for Instagram and TikTok, and search for Market Mystics on YouTube and Facebook. If you still need more, follow the link on Facebook to book a coaching appointment. Until next time, see ya.